On3's 2024 rankings have been finalized, and I got On3 Director of Scouting and Rankings, Charles Power, here to break it all down. We're going to reveal the final 32 5-stars in the 2024 class. But before we get into it, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. The 2024 cycle is ending, but 2025 is getting cranked up. So do me a favor and hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on my guy, Charles Power, and we're going to start at number 32 on this list with Trades Green, On3's number 2 ranked tight end from Jackson, Louisiana. Green committed to LSU at the end of April and never wavered. Wanted to stay home and play for the Tigers. He signed with LSU in December.
Trades Green is a monster mismatch in the red zone. This guy's a big-time threat in jump ball situations. You'd be hard-pressed to find a more impressive highlight reel in this cycle. He was a basketball star who really took off as a football prospect, transferred high schools as a senior, showed a bunch of improvement, improved his route running skills, and just overall movement ability. The sky's the limit for Trades Green, and he presents a big-time threat in jump ball situations.
Number 31, Jalen Mbakwe, ranked as an athlete for much of the cycle, but now he's ranked as a corner. LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss made a run at him, but he committed to the Tide in July of 2022. He is currently signed and enrolled at Alabama.
Jalen Mbakwe is the fastest top cornerback in the 2024 cycle. This guy won the fastest man out of everyone at Under Armour. He's a track star and plays like it on the field. He's a playmaker in every facet at the high school level, led his team to a state title as a senior, really played a lot of quarterback and receiver his final 2 years, so it's going to take him some time to continue to adjust back to playing corner, but there's a ton of upside in large part due to his athletic ability.
Number 30, Caleb Odom, On3's number 1 ranked tight end, committed to Alabama right here on the On3 channel back in July. Ole Miss was a threat to flip him late, but he stuck out with Alabama, and he is currently signed and enrolled.
Caleb Odom brings a wide receiver skill set and athleticism to tight end. He moves like a big receiver, but he's 6'4", 220. This guy's a big-time mismatch with his speed and ability to separate. He runs past corners and is very good after the catch. I think Caleb Odom has outstanding contact balance as well. He's also a great basketball player. I think this guy had maybe the best dunk reel that we saw in the 2024 cycle. Just a high-flying athlete and has a ton of potential as a tight end and just mismatch in the pass game.
Number 29, David Stone, On3's number 3 ranked defensive lineman, and this was a whirlwind of a recruitment. It ended in August when Stone chose Oklahoma over Michigan State, Miami, and Florida. Stone signed with the Sooners during the early period.
David Stone is the most polished defensive lineman in the 2024 cycle. He has very violent hands at the point of attack. He has elite length. He's active. He has a ton of pass rush moves, a dangerous interior pass rusher, and just has a knack for being around the ball. Also practices with a lot of intensity. I think when you look at Oklahoma, Brent Venables has really made an effort to improve the talent level on the defensive front, and David Stone is a big foundational piece in the move for them to continue bolstering the defensive line.
Number 28, Colin Simmons, On3's number 3 ranked edge. The Duncanville standout committed live with On3 back in August, and this recruitment really came down to Texas, LSU, and Miami. Simmons signed and enrolled with the Texas Longhorns.
Colin Simmons was a statement recruiting win for Texas, and that's in large part due to his ability as a pass rusher off the edge. I think he has perhaps the best first step quickness among pass rushers in the 2024 cycle. He was dinged up a little bit as a senior, but I think when you go back and look at the junior year, probably had the best junior year among pass rushers. So he's shown that he can do it at a high level, plays at arguably the top high school program in the state of Texas in Duncanville, helped them to back-to-back state titles. So Colin Simmons brings a lot to the table, and I think he's a dynamic pass rusher, a guy who can line up standing up or with his hand in the dirt. It has the ability to create a lot of disruption in Austin.
Number 27, Cooper Cousins, the massive 6'6", 320-pound offensive lineman, is headed to Penn State, and he's been locked in since his commitment in January of 2022. Cousins signed early and enrolled at Penn State.
Cooper Cousins looks like the clear top interior offensive line prospect in this cycle. Looking back at all the national all-star games, I think Cooper Cousins had the best overall showing among offensive linemen that we were able to see in January. He has the ability to play all 5 positions along the offensive line, but at 6'6", 320, we think he's pretty unique as an interior lineman, a guy who could play guard or center, actually has snapping experience, played center at the high school level. Very strong. He kind of does what he wants with defensive linemen, moves them at will. Also is athletic and can get out on the move. It's not every day that we see interior offensive linemen make early impacts in college, but I think Cooper Cousins certainly has that type of ability, and he's a guy who you could put on the college field right now and feel good about it.
Number 26, Luke Kromenhoek Florida State accepted the commitment of Kromenhoek in March of 2022 before Kromenhoek had started a varsity football game. 2 years later, FSU hits on Kromenhoek as he's a 5-star. Georgia made a late run after Dylan Raiola decommitted, but Kromenhoek signed with the Noles in December.
Luke Kromenhoek is the best quarterback prospect to sign with Florida State since Jameis Winston. And I think he has one of the higher upsides among this group in 2024. I think when you look at his physical tools, he has NFL ability with his size, arm, movement skills, his natural mechanics, tight throwing motion. So there's a lot to work with there. Now, this is a guy who has only been a 2-year varsity starter, so he doesn't have quite the experience level of some of these other top quarterbacks and might need a little bit of time to continue developing. But I think once he gets on the field in Tallahassee, he has a bunch of potential and is a guy who could really help Mike Norvell continue to elevate the Seminoles program.
Number 25 is KJ Bolden from Buford, Georgia, and it looked at one point during the cycle he was going to be leaving the state when he committed to Florida State in August. But on December's early signing day, Bolden flipped that commitment to Georgia. He signed and enrolled. Now, Auburn, they were also a threat, but in the end, he was all dog.
KJ Bolden is an outstanding overall athlete and a guy who we saw make a ton of plays as a receiver and defensive back. Now, we project him as a safety, and he brings corner cover ability to the safety position. Kind of view him as a free safety type, but outstanding range, a guy who can really fly. And I think he brings a lot of potential to Georgia's secondary and will help them replace a guy like Malachi Starks, who is presumably going pro next year.
Number 24 is Dominic McKinley, the number 1 player in the state of Louisiana. McKinley was committed to the Aggies for much of the 2024 cycle. Texas and LSU were trying, but in the end, it was LSU with the late flip. Now, McKinley is committed, but has not signed yet. He's expected to do that on February 7, National Signing Day.
Dominic McKinley had the best showing of any defensive lineman we saw at a national all-star game. Really was exceptional throughout the week at Under Armour earlier this month. I think for starters, he has outstanding physical traits. He's 6'5", 280, long arms, and plays with outstanding flexibility. Really gets underneath the pads of offensive linemen and had some eye-popping reps at Under Armour, just detonating on offensive linemen and kind of doing what he wanted when everything was aligned. I think Dominic McKinley, his best football is certainly ahead of him. He's just scratching the surface of his potential. And I think when you're looking at this defensive line group, his upside is as high as anybody.
Number 23 is Weston Davis, and he is yet another Aggie to LSU flip. Davis, the top offensive lineman in the state of Texas, flipped after Jimbo Fisher was fired from Texas A&M. Now, he signed with LSU in December and is expected to enroll this summer.
Brian Kelly is doing a great job of rebuilding the offensive line group at LSU, and Weston Davis was the crown jewel and the big get for the Tigers on the offensive line in 2024. I think he arguably has the highest developmental upside at offensive tackle in this cycle. He's how you draw him up physically. He's over 6'5", 285 pounds, arms over 35 inches, and this guy's only been playing football for 2 or 3 years, but he is extremely mean. He shows the mentality you want along with the athleticism, is a starter for a nationally ranked high school basketball team. So you know he has those movement skills and athleticism. I think the biggest thing with him is going to be getting into their program, getting the coaching, but I think he's a guy we could look up in a few years and see him as a top draft pick.
Number 22 is Jordan Seaton, offensive tackle from IMG Academy, one of the most colorful recruitments of the cycle. Now, Seaton took a ton of visits, thought it would be either Tennessee or Oregon in the end, but Colorado won out. He signed and enrolled with Coach Prime in the Buffs already.
Jordan Seaton is the crown jewel of Coach Prime's recruiting class at Colorado, and I think he has the potential to be a day-one starter at left tackle for the Buffaloes. And that's because Jordan Seaton is the most polished offensive tackle in this cycle. This guy's played a lot of meaningful football at IMG Academy and St. John's College before that, and he is very polished and just technical in his pass pro, a strong run blocker, a guy who has a very well-rounded skill set, and really did a great job of reshaping his body and improving his athleticism over the last 2 years. So I think when you're looking at the offensive linemen, particularly the offensive tackles in this cycle, Jordan Seaton is the most ready to play, and I think a guy who could be an impact player for Colorado.
21, DeMello Jones. He's a cornerback from Swainsboro, Georgia, committed to the Dogs last spring over Bama, Tennessee, and Ohio State. He's considered a few visits, but wanted to stay home and play for UGA. Jones is signed and enrolled with Georgia.
Yeah, DeMello Jones might be a under the radar name, but he's a big time talent. This is a guy who has been a steady riser for us throughout the rankings process. And we were going back watching senior film. He's one who we felt stacked up really well within this corner position. Now, this is a guy who checks a lot of boxes just from a prospect and profile standpoint. He's a two-way playmaker, led his team to state title games as a junior and senior, dynamic with the ball in his hands on offense, but is very dangerous and just hard to throw the ball on at the high school level. We got to see him in person this summer at OT7, and this is a guy who kind of makes a lot of plays. He has an outstanding multi-sport profile as a track athlete and basketball player, and I think there's just a lot of developmental upside there, and he is a big get for Georgia as an in-state guy from South Georgia.
At number 20, we have Micah Hudson, the number 1 ranked wide receiver in the state of Texas. Now, he committed to Texas Tech back in September. In June and July, he really started trending that way, but it never happened. Then Texas Tech commitment in September, and he signs with the Red Raiders in December.
Micah Hudson is the highest rated prospect to sign with Texas Tech in the internet recruiting era, and I think that's with good reason. He was a statement win for Joey McGuire, landing the top receiver in the state of Texas. From watching high school football throughout the fall on Friday nights, I don't think anyone made more exciting plays on a weekly basis than Micah Hudson. This is a guy who can win at every level. He makes big plays in every phase. He plays above the rim. He's strong at the catch point. He's shifty and dynamic after the catch, and I expect him to see a lot of targets in Lubbock.
Number 19, Sammy Brown, the top-rated linebacker in the state of Georgia, and he's leaving the state of Georgia. Brown committed to Clemson in early June and stuck to it. He signed early with the Tigers in December.
Yeah, I think Sammy Brown has a case as the top two-way player in this cycle. This guy was a prolific running back and linebacker. Now, obviously, we project him as a linebacker. He's signing with Clemson as a linebacker. But I'm just going to read you his stats real quick because they're eye-popping. As a senior, he rushed for over 2,200 yards, 36 touchdowns. He caught 4 more touchdowns and had over 153 tackles on defense. This guy never came off the field, and he was just all over the field making plays in every phase. Elite effort, and I think he probably has the best multi-sport profile in this cycle as well. He's a wrestling state champion. He has eye-popping track times at 6'2", 225 pounds. So I think when you look at Sammy Brown, this guy is extremely physically developed. He's going to come in college, I think, is going to be easy for him from a physical perspective. And I think once he gets up to speed with Clemson's defense, this is an impact player at linebacker for the Tigers.
At 18, we have Garby Lambert. The big man from West Rosbury, Massachusetts, is an elite offensive tackle who chose Notre Dame over Ohio State, Boston College, and Harvard. He is now signed with Notre Dame.
There might not be a school that recruits and develops offensive linemen at a level as high as Notre Dame, and Garby Lambert looks to be next in line there. For starters, he's probably the best run blocker we saw at offensive tackle in this cycle. 6'6", 290 pounds, plays very mean, physical. I think he has outstanding flexibility, plays low with outstanding leverage, and he utterly dominated the competition in Massachusetts. So I think when you're looking at Notre Dame, once he gets up to speed as a pass protector, he's a guy who has a bunch of potential and looks like a multi-year starter in South Bend.
At 17, we have Zay Mincy, the top-rated defensive back in Florida, and he's leaving the state. Mincy announced his commitment to Alabama at the All-American Bowl in early January over UF, FSU, and Miami. Mincy is signed and enrolled at Alabama.
Kalen DeBoer and his staff are inheriting the top incoming group of cornerbacks from the 2024 cycle, and Zay Mincy is the highest rated of that group for On3. I think when you look at the corner cycle nationally, he had the best physical traits. This guy is 6'2", 185 pounds, plus length. He's a very good athlete. He's a combine star, track athlete, plays basketball, and when you see all those traits kind of come together on the field, it's easy to see why he's a 5-star. He was a big lockdown corner for Daytona Mainland as a senior, was, in our opinion, the top corner at the All-American Bowl back in San Antonio. Got better over the course of the week and just has a ton of ability. I think he's a guy who, once he gets in the college program and continues to get better and improve and hone his technical ability, there's a ton of upside here.
At number 16, Josiah Thompson, On3's number 1 rated offensive tackle in America. He's from Dillon, South Carolina, and he's staying home. He signed with the Gamecocks in December.
Josiah Thompson is the best mover among the offensive linemen that we evaluated in 2024. He's a twitchy athlete, showed a good pass set at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio. I think has a bunch of upside when you consider his athleticism and his developmental build. At 6'6", 265 pounds. He has a bunch of room to keep adding weight, but plays with good strength relative to his size. So might take him a year or two to kind of continue to build up that mass, but a lot of upside. He looks like the left tackle of the future for the Gamecocks.
At number 15, Terry Bussey, the five-star athlete from Timpson, Texas. He's committed to Texas A&M, but remains unsigned still. LSU and Georgia are the biggest threats to flip him before February's National Signing Day.
Yeah, Terry Bussey is a historic high school football player in the state of Texas and probably the best player from that state since Kyler Murray. I know that's high praise, but he put up crazy stats and led his team to a state title as a senior and can really do everything on the field. He played quarterback and DB for his high school. He could play receiver or DB in college. We really like his upside as a DB, really as a nickel corner or a safety. He is an elite athlete with an outstanding multi-sport profile, a track star, very good basketball player, and just a complete natural at whatever he does. And also Terry Bussey could be a 2025 prospect. He is younger for the cycle, so he's a guy who really checks a ton of boxes as a prospect.
At number 14, we have Edge Williams-Winery. Now, he had an intense recruitment between Oklahoma, Georgia, and Missouri, but Missouri was able to keep the number one player in the state home. Winery signed with the Tigers in December.
Williams-Winery has the biggest frame among these top defensive line edge prospects in the cycle. 6'6", 265 pounds. Could easily see him being a 300-plus pounder in college, but having the athleticism to play on the edge. He is a very good athlete and easily one of the highest ceilings in this cycle. He was a massive get for Missouri, keeping him home, and it was the longtime number one prospect for On3, and that was largely based on his potential. After seeing him for a week at Under Armour, certainly needs to continue to improve his physicality, but if he does, the upside is as high as anybody.
Number 13 is TJ Moore, wide receiver from Tampa, Florida. He had a great showing at the All-American Bowl, committed to Clemson in June over UF, and the Gators tried to keep him home in Florida, but Moore signed with Clemson in December.
Yeah, TJ Moore has an elite skill level, and we saw that on display at the All-American Bowl, where front to back, I think he had the strongest all-star showing when you factor in the practices and the game of anybody we saw. And, I mean, it was a loaded year at receiver, so that's really high praise. I think TJ Moore has the most consistent hands of any receiver we've seen in person. He was easily one of the best route runners in the class, just effortlessly drops his weight. He was just not able to be covered all week in San Antonio. He transfers that over to the field on Friday nights. I think has elite production, also a very strong athlete with a track background, a strong athletic profile. And really checks every box to be a five-star. Highly productive, great size, great in-person showing. So we came away from that week in San Antonio thing. There's no doubt TJ Moore is a five-star.
At number 12 is Dylan Stewart, the number 3 ranked edge in the country. He was the top player in the state of South Carolina, and another big win for Shane Beamer. Committed to South Carolina on August 1, and really his recruitment was quiet after that, signing with the Gamecocks in December.
Haven't seen all these guys in person. Dylan Stewart is probably the most physically impressive right now. He's 6'5", 250 pounds. Really looks like a creative player physically. Definitely the guy you want coming off the bus first, and is a really good athlete at that size. Has dynamic pass rush ability. Can even cover tight ends. So he can do a lot of different things athletically. If everything clicks with Dylan Stewart, his upside is as high as anyone in this class, and we could look back and think he's the top player from the cycle.
Number 11, Justin Scott, one of the biggest flips of the cycle, the 5-star defensive lineman from St. Ignatius High School in Chicago, Illinois, committed to Ohio State in July, but flipped to the Miami Hurricanes in November and then signed in December.
Yeah, Justin Scott was a huge flip for Miami, and I think he was a top two-way lineman in the cycle, playing as a defensive lineman and offensive lineman in high school. Obviously, we project him as a defensive lineman. This guy is a really unique mover at 6'4", 310 pounds, extremely fluid, and it has a really high upside. Like once he gets the coaching, he's going to get at Miami and continues to develop his hands. I think there's a ton of potential there with Justin Scott.
All right, before we get into the final 10, let's take a look back at number 32 through 11. From Tradez Green to Justin Scott, those are our 5 stars. Now let's get into this top 10 and finish it off with number 10, Marquise Lightfoot, the number 2 rated edge in the country. Another Chicago, Illinois defender heading to Miami. Lightfoot committed to the Canes in July over Ohio State, Notre Dame, and USC.
Marquise Lightfoot has the best motor of any defender we evaluated in 2024. This guy's an absolute hair-on-fire defender. He's 6'5", 215 pounds, has long arms. He's an elite athlete in the combine setting, and that transfers over to the field. He was the best speed rusher we saw in the All-Star setting. He gave offensive tackles a ton of issues at the All-American Bowl with his ability to fly off the edge. Miami's really stacking talent on the defensive front, and I think Marquise Lightfoot really continues that trend and has the upside of being a big-time pass rusher in Coral Gables.
At number 9, Justin Williams, On3's number 1 ranked linebacker. Williams is from Conroe, Texas, but he chose UGA over Texas and Oregon. Williams is signed and enrolled at Georgia.
I think Justin Williams has a case as the top off-ball linebacker in several cycles. This guy's an absolute banshee as a defender. His play speed and ability to run sideline to sideline will probably remind Georgia fans a little bit of Roquan Smith, and I know that's high praise, but Justin Williams is 6'2", 210, runs in the 4.4s, and he plays like it. He triggers really quickly behind the line of scrimmage, also makes plays in coverage. I mean, his senior season was incredible. He was an absolute banshee. He had 36 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, multiple pick sixes. So this is a guy who is a complete linebacker prospect. Once he adds a little weight, I think he has the makings of a big-time player in Athens.
At number 8, Ryan Williams, On3's number 3 ranked wide receiver in the class. And follow me here. Williams committed to Alabama a year ago. At the time, he was in the 2025 class. In November, he reclassified up to the 2024 class. And in January, he decommitted from Bama when Nick Saban retired. After that, he set official visits to Texas A&M, Auburn, Texas, and Alabama, but then shut it all down, recommitting to the Tide on January 24th. Williams is committed to Alabama and expected to sign with them on February 7th.
Ryan Williams is the most dangerous deep threat in what is a historic wide receiver group nationally. He is really the top receiver talent that Alabama signed in several cycles. He's an elite athlete who doubles as a track star, posts outstanding speed numbers, and is extremely productive. Over 70 touchdowns his final 2 years of high school football, and that's considering he reclassified. He's capable of winning at every level of the field, just a highly functional mover, a guy who harnesses his elite speed, which separates him from a lot of other fast receivers. And he's also going to be the youngest 5-star. This is a guy who reclassified, doesn't turn 18 years old until February. So he's going to play his entire freshman season as a 17-year-old. So a ton of upside there, and he gives Kalen DeBoer a big-time target.
At number 7, Jordan Ross, On3's number 1 ranked edge, a huge pickup for Tennessee. Ross is from Birmingham, Alabama, and chose Tennessee over Alabama, Georgia, and others. He signed with the Vols in December.
We had a chance to see all the top edge prospects at National All-Star games, and Jordan Ross looked like the most complete pass rusher among that group. He had fantastic showings at Under Armour, the Polynesian Bowl, a highly gifted athlete. At 6'4", 220 pounds, this guy runs a laser 4.6 40, and I think he's going to leave Tennessee as a 240-plus pounder running in the 4.5s. He has great get-off and play speed. He showed the strength to hold up against the run. Also played with a really high effort level and physicality. Really kind of a nasty defender. Jordan Ross brings a ton of juice off the edge, and I think is going to continue Josh Heupel's track record of recruiting some top pass rushers.
At number 6, LJ McCray, On3's number 1 ranked defensive lineman, and it was a big battle for his commitment, which UF landed in October over FSU, Miami, and Auburn. Now, Auburn, they made a late push, but McCray is a Gator. He signed with UF in December.
LJ McCray was a massive get for Billy Napier, the top in-state defender in Florida. Just a dominant senior season. I think he had the best senior season of any defender that we evaluated. He's always been a high upside prospect at 6'6", 280 with his athleticism, but really flipped the switch last fall. Was virtually unblockable. Had 37 tackles for loss as a senior. If you're wondering, that's a ton of tackles for loss. Led his team to its first state title in 20 years. And he's versatile. He's able to line up anywhere on the defensive line. Play strength, the athleticism, and his great motor, I think, make him a big-time get for Florida.
At number 5, Julian Sayin, On3's number 2 ranked quarterback. Sayin is from Carlsbad, California. He committed to Alabama in November of 2022. He signed with the Tide in December and enrolled. Then Sayin participated in bowl practice. But Saban left, and so did Sayin. He entered the transfer portal only to commit to Ohio State a few days later. So in short, Julian Sayin is a Buckeye.
Julian Sain is the most accurate quarterback in the 2024 cycle. He is surgical when operating from within structure, completed over 75% of his passes as a senior, and he had the best summer we saw of any quarterback on the camp circuit. He was the Lead 11 MVP. He was the On3 MVP at OT7. A very strong fit in Ohio State's offense. It's not hard to see him working within Ryan Day's scheme, distributing the ball to some of the top playmakers that they have at receiver, and a guy who I think excels within structure when he can pick apart defenses and make the right read and deliver with accuracy. A big-time late get for Ohio State, and a guy who it's easy to see him making big plays in Columbus.
At number 4 is Ellis Robinson, On3's number 1 ranked cornerback. Robinson committed to Georgia last February, and really, there was a little bit of noise. Miami made a run in his recruitment, but Robinson was all dog. He is signed and enrolled with Georgia.
Ellis Robinson has the ability and skill level to be a true freshman starter at Georgia, and I think that's obviously a huge feat. At this stage, he appears to be the clear top corner in the cycle, has outstanding length, ball skills, and cover instincts, very strong in contested catch situations. He's the only corner that we saw over the course of the cycle who was able to do much of anything with Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman, winning his fair share of battles in those all-star national event type situations. One thing that also really impressed me about Ellis Robinson was just his competitiveness. He has the right mindset to play corner, a short memory, doesn't back down from any big-time matchup. So I think when you are looking at him at Georgia, this is a guy who I think is going to come in ready to play and ready to make an instant impact.
Let's go into the top 3, and at number 3, we have Cam Coleman, On3's number 2 ranked wide receiver, and Coleman had a bit of a wild recruitment. In the summer, he was trending heavily towards Auburn, but then made a surprise commitment in early July to Texas A&M. But Auburn never gave up, ultimately flipping Coleman after the firing of Jimbo Fisher, and Coleman signed with Auburn in December.
In a historic wide receiver group nationally, Cam Coleman is the biggest freak. I think he's a special talent. And when you look at Auburn, I'm not sure a better receiver prospect to sign with the Tigers in recent memory, if not ever. It is rare to see a receiver of this size who has both elite athleticism and ball skills. I've been going to these All-Star games for the past 10 years, and I have not seen a receiver with this type of big play ability. Cam Coleman was making jaw-dropping plays at Under Armour. His ability to win deep, in addition to being a monster in jump ball situations, is just unlike anything we've seen in these All-Star games. He's 6'3.5", 190 pounds with a laser 4.4 40, and he plays like it. He has the largest catch radius in the cycle at receiver with an elite combination of length, leaping ability, and coordination. He's always had these big-time tools, but really put it together as a senior, had a big final year, and led his team to a state title and a historic championship game win. Also should technically be a 2025 prospect at being younger for the cycle. So I think when you look at Cam Coleman, the overall resume, the highlights he's put together, both in the high school season and in the all-star setting, he's a special prospect and one that Auburn fans should be over the moon about landing.
At number 2 on our list, DJ Lagway, the number 1 QB for On3, the number 1 player in the state of Texas, and he had a big senior year. Committed to UF in December of 2022 over Clemson and USC. Now, Texas A&M made a late run, but Lagway stayed solid, signing with Florida in December.
DJ Lagway has the highest upside among quarterbacks in the 2024 cycle. He's 6'3", 230 pounds with a live arm and has the best rushing ability of these top quarterbacks as well. He had a fantastic senior year. Really had not even the best senior year among quarterbacks, but maybe the best senior year of any player nationally. He was the Gatorade National Player of the Year, and it was well-deserved. Lagway completed 72% of his passes for over 4,600 yards. Ran for nearly 1,000 more yards, had 74 total touchdowns, and he did everything for his team. This was the best season his high school has had in school history. He had the best senior year, not only of any quarterback, but of maybe all players nationally. Now, DJ Lagway has room to continue improving, but I think given the physical upside, the improvements he showed as a senior, and the monster senior year, I think you have to be really bullish on his upside and ability to be an impact player at Florida.
And at number 1, we have wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, the number 1 player, the number 1 wide receiver, and longtime Ohio State commitment. Signed with the Buckeyes in December, but Miami, FSU, and Florida all did their best to flip him down the stretch. And remember, there was a little delay with his letter of intent. on December's National Signing Day, but the facts went through and Smith officially signed with Ohio State.
Jeremiah Smith is the most advanced high school receiver prospect in over a decade, and he's the most sure thing among any prospect in the 2024 cycle. He looks like an NFL player right now at 6'3", 215 pounds, and for my money is the best route runner in the cycle. He has a deep bag of releases, which is unique to see for a player of that size. He's a ball winner, tracks the ball very well, and has elite production at the high school level. Had over 40 touchdowns his final 2 seasons of high school football. And he shows up and works. We saw him at the All-American Bowl. He's in the front of every line, getting reps in. This is a guy who is a technician and wants to get better. So I think when you look at the natural ability, the technical skill, he is a near can't-miss prospect at the position. Now, my comparison for him, which I actually feel pretty good about, is Larry Fitzgerald. And he has that type of ability, I think, at Ohio State. And we were the only outlet to rank Marvin Harrison Jr. as a 5-star prospect, and Jeremiah Smith's a good bit further ahead than where Marvin Harrison Jr. was at the same stage. So I think he'll need to continue working and improving, and obviously this high ranking is not a given. He's going to live up to that potential, but man, he's a special prospect, and I think if you're going to label a generational prospect in this cycle, Jeremiah Smith has the best shot of being that.
There you have it, On3's final 32 5-stars of the 2024 class. The final rankings from 32 down to 1. And in these final rankings, we saw new 5-stars, and they were tight end Tradez Green, corner Jalen Mbakwe, tight end Caleb Odom, Cooper Cousins, Luke Kromenhawk, DeMello Jones, Dominic McKinley, Garby Lambert, Zay Mincy, Terry Bussey, TJ Moore, Marquise Lightfoot, and Jordan Ross. What do you guys think? Let me know. Comment section below. Who's your favorite 5-star? Who has the most upside of all the 5-stars in the 2024 class? Let me know. Comment section below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.